All right. Well, it's a little bit after 3, so I thought I'd go ahead and get started. So, first of all, thank you so much. It's been actually I was just looking here a few moments ago. It's been almost 2 months since I've been able to do a live stream. So, for anybody tuning in right now, awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching the recording, awesome, great. If you're watching on YouTube, that's great too. So, really appreciate you all tuning in. So, anyway, if you want to say hi in the comments, that's always awesome to see who's out there. And if you want to let us know where you're tuning in from, that's always appreciated as well. So, yeah, so it's been a couple months. It's just the summer was really busy. So for me, the summer can be a really busy time because I do a lot of summer camps and teaching summer programs, and that's exactly what I was doing. And yeah, just working a lot and not having a lot of time to do my own thing. So now I'm looking forward to finding some time, and I'm hoping to kind of get back into that weekly live streaming. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping. And I know I could probably definitely do it during September. October might be a little bit more difficult. That's already starting to get kind of busy with different things. But anyway, so yeah, so I'm coming live today, and I'm gonna work in my little journal. So to kind of recap, way back, I think in May, I had done some live streaming, and I was working in a little journal that I was calling my emergence journal. And I did that all of May, and then even into June and such, I was still working in it, and I haven't worked on it in it at all. So I haven't worked on it in it outside of live streaming. So I'm going to kind of go back to that. It's been a couple months now, and I kind of want to dive back into that. So if you want to work along with me, awesome. If you just want to watch, awesome too. I just always feel like this is a time to kind of come together and just kind of work on stuff. And of course, I just always talk through like what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what I'm doing and such like that. So anyway, just appreciate you being here. Appreciate you tuning in. And if you have any questions or comments, of course, post them in the comments. So let's go ahead. I'm going to switch this over and kind of recap my little emergence journal, and I'll go ahead and get started. So here's that little journal. It is a Stillman and Burn. I'm trying to think which series. It's like the heavy duty paper. I think it's their Zeta series. I really like the paper in it. It's nice and heavy. Yeah, so I've been working in it. Like I said, kind of worked on it all through May. And then the only times I have been working in it have been during the live streams. And so it's just great, like, to kind of see that evolution. And it's like it's getting pretty full, and I'm feeling that like the kind of like at least maybe the first half is feeling pretty resolved. Kind of getting into these spaces. Feel like maybe there's still more to do. In this space, I feel like there could be some more things. And so that's kind of like my goal, is to like keep working. Of course, like this one feels like this page, this spread feels pretty resolved to me, but I feel like there's some things that are lacking, and that's usually typical of me. I work, even though I don't work in chronological order, I jump around a lot. The beginning pages tend to get kind of finished first or resolved first. But I was looking through this earlier, and I thought like this might be like kind of interesting. I've got the words uncovering, discovering, recovering, and I was like, maybe something needs to be written here. So maybe I'll come back to that. I haven't quite decided what might be written there, but that could be a good way of sort of tying all these words together and then doing something here. But what I want to do, actually, I want to go back to the very back. And so I've started something on every page. Some pages have some cutouts. And I wanted to go back to the very last page. And what I like about this little book is that even the end papers are that mixed media paper. So it's right on the inside of the back cover. And but I have all these pages. There's something going on. There's color on it, some textures, some drawing, but I haven't really developed them that much. And so I'm kind of thinking like today I might sort of work backwards in the journal and start with the back. I think that might be an interesting way to sort of jump back into this. Like I said, I haven't done anything in this journal for the last 2 months, so I kind of feel like I need to get reacquainted and kind of feeling like, these pages don't have a lot going on. So maybe that's kind of where I am going to start. And so I did have an idea for back here. So I was kind of looking and realized like, hey, I used an image of myself here on the very inside front cover, very first page, basically. And I thought, well, let's bring it back full circle. And I think I'm going to put another image of myself. I wanted a different one. So I was looking through my Fodder, and I found this image. I know some folks don't really use their own images a lot. I don't, well, I guess I do, I still do, but it's always been something that I've done a lot of. And part of that is because my journaling is about me. And I know some folks are self-conscious and they're like, oh, I don't want to have, pictures of myself or whatever. But I find that, my journaling is about me. So I might as well put myself into it. It's one of the reasons that I never really got into using old photos. I know some folks use like vintage photos that they get from the antique stores. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just that my approach is more one where it's like, I want it to be more relevant. And I feel like images from vintage photos just really aren't that relevant to me. At least I just don't feel that. I know other people have different feelings about it, but so I often use selfies, self-portraits, and it's something I've always done even before cell phones were a big thing. I used to use digital cameras, or I'd scan in actual photographs back before, everything was digital. So I'm thinking this is just going to go on this back page, and then I'll do some other things. So let me go ahead and grab my glue stick. So my trusty Uhu glue stick. And just real quick, I just happen to have this like sitting next to me. Some folks are always asking me about the glue sticks, and of course the Uhu are my go-to, my favorite. But when I buy them in bulk. So I buy the big pack, do 12 at a time, and so I go through them pretty quickly though. Just thought I'd grab that since it was nearby. But anyway, so I got my trusty glue stick and kind of go ahead and glue this in. So yeah, so like I said, if you've got any questions or comments or concerns, let me know. Yeah, teaching a lot sometimes doesn't leave me with a lot of energy to make art. So I really haven't done too much making lately. And the last few days, it's been nice to like not have those obligations and be able to like sit down and work on some things. And so I'm pretty excited to be kind of back and able to share. Okay, so I've got that image, and I like how in the beginning I have a little window that then opens up and kind of shows. So I think I'm going to do something similar here. And I want to cut out a window. I think what I'll do first is I'll use my water-soluble pencil. So these are those Inktense pencils that I really like. And I think what I want to do is draw the rectangle. The nice thing is that I can sort of gauge how big I want the window to be. And so this little journal was all about that theme of emergence, of just really feeling like something's trying to break free, break out. Um, and it came directly from artwork that I was making back in January and February and March. Uh, Still exploring some of those ideas with the cracks and the emergence notions. But I want to, part of me is like, oh, I really want to resolve this journal. I want to, hate using that word complete, but just kind of want to finish working in this and continue exploring those ideas, kind of seeing where they go. Okay, so I'm gonna use my hair dryer. So I'll mute it. Hopefully I'll remember to unmute it. Okay, so got that dried, and I want to cut a window, so I'm going to pull out my cutting mat and we'll stick that underneath. I always try to hold on to these scraps just because they're really awesome to use, to glue in elsewhere or use in other work. Try not to waste anything. So I like how that kind of frames it, doesn't show the whole image, just sort of frames it. And then what I was thinking is that what if I did another window? And so then that way it's kind of peeking through a couple pages. So I'm going to just bend that over and then take a pencil somewhere in here. My mess here, I've got the pencil. I'm going to make this the same size. Sometimes it's interesting to have it get smaller as it goes through multiple pages, but I'm going to spin this around just so it's a little bit easier to cut. And so one of the things I can think of later is sort of like what's going to go here and how is that going to relate. So, these frames are kind of big and there's not a lot of space in them, but there's still enough to write and draw and add things around it. So we'll see. But just kind of, just that notion the windows allow multiple pages to relate to certain things. I think I want, to do something like add some paint or something, maybe some water-soluble pencil around here. So I'm just going to take a scrap. This is just a index card. I've done this before. I probably have a couple index cards floating around where I've done this, but just allows me to do something around the edge here without worrying about the color getting into the window, onto the page underneath it. So I'm doing that over here, maybe add some over here. So by adding this on top of the collage, it will help kind of push the collage down into the page, and then becomes more of a part of the page and doesn't just seem to float on top. And also carrying some of this red over onto the image helps push it down as well. All right, let's hit that with the hair dryer. Find it interesting how that back cover curled up. So that's an interesting contrast with the red and the greens. I'm not really sure, but I think I'll just pull out some of my punchinella, pull out some paint. I think today's just kind of easing back into it. Just like reacquainting myself with the whole process, reacquainting myself with the book and what I've already done in it. Oops, it moved. All right, I'm gonna hit this with the hair dryer. I don't have a whole lot of other collage, though. I pulled out some bingo cards that I had from a fundraiser my wife and I have gone to. I don't remember if I've used any of these in here or not. Used a lot of maps and security envelopes. Doesn't look like I've really used them. So actually what I might do is if I use one back here, I might find a spot up front or close to the front to kind of maybe not use a whole card. And I don't think I'm going to use a whole card in here, but really like the numbers. Let's figure out what I want to do with these. So it's like I've cut out some of the numbers before and something else I've done. I think I'm going to put part of it over here too. Guess I could have just folded it over, but you know, sometimes ideas come to you afterwards. Trim the corners off. I like how some of the numbers peek through the window. like I said, this notion that they're here and I don't use them anywhere else, it's not that big of a deal, but I think I want to find someplace. Maybe there's a spot where it just feels like I can fit. I mean, I've got these little scraps here that maybe I can fit in somewhere. I think it may be something up here. That glue stick is done. Luckily, I still have another one over here. Okay, so just kind of using those bingo numbers in other places just kind of helps with the continuity of it. I might find other spaces to use it. And then even back here, I'll probably use some maps or some security envelopes. That's something I haven't used too much here in the back part. That might be something to do at a later time. We'll see. Let's see here. I feel like I want to use ink and Inktense pencils to create a little bit of structure back here. And I've got some here, but not so much elsewhere. Maybe here, do something. Let's try this green. So a lot of times I don't know exactly like what I want to do on a page. It just sort of has to develop. And so using things like the Inktense pencils to create some structure is kind of or to create like individual spaces is something I do a lot. And I do a lot with squares and rectangles and circles. I'm just kind of thinking about how that, I do a lot of threes too. 3 circles there and 3 squares here. I like the number 3. Um, it's an odd number, so it's seems a little bit more exciting than an even number. But then 3 is a very stable number. Think about a triangle as a very stable shape, even more stable than a square. But I don't use a lot of triangles. I don't use a lot of diagonal lines. So it's kind of like squares and circles. And then I use a lot of organic lines, the kind of mapping marks. But then also squares kind of hark back to maps, the idea of grids and boxes and things that you find on maps. Let's hit that with the hair dryer. Just flipping through. Um, sometimes I just kind of get to a point where like, okay, I'm not sure what I want to do next. So I was kind of flipping through and something caught my eye. So when I got back here, I've got this red line that I've done before. And I did that from the very beginning, this idea of sort of that red thread that runs through it all. And it goes from page to page to page. And then comes into here and then it stops here. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to pick it up again and have it start to go through. So kind of got that in my head. So I think I'm going to work on that. Just, it's like one of those things where it's like you just kind of stay open and not trying to have like a real clear cut idea. So when I looked through this earlier before I started the live stream, I was just kind of seeing where, like what might I do? And so that's when I came up with that idea of back here of doing this. And then I didn't really have a plan afterwards. So just kind of seeing where things are taking me. I kind of feel like I want this, since it ends at a map, I kind of feel like I want it to start at a map. Like, where did I, so maybe here. So I'm thinking like, got this red line. I really like thinking about how these pages can connect, because it's something that I don't think we naturally do with a book. You know, when we read a book, we don't think anything about like how the story continues, you know, from one page to another, and that the words connect and kind of create this thread that goes throughout. But when it comes to working in a book, working in a visual journal, I think a lot of times we just kind of feel, and I've talked about this before, but I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, you know, each page is a different piece of art. And it's like, you know, what if I thought of it as one big piece, that it's one continuing piece of art? Or maybe using the word art's a little bit, sometimes I think it's too big of a word. People want to, they'll say like, oh, I don't make art. I'm not an artist. So, you know, what I do isn't art. And it's sort of like, well, you're making images, right? You're using materials to make images. You're an artist. But I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not a real artist. It's like, yes, you are. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times we suffer from that imposter syndrome. Um, but you know, we can think of it as that visual narrative. Like it's a continuous narrative, even though it's not. I'm trying not to think of it as like one long piece of art or visual narrative that's laid out end to end. But how does one page, one idea lead to another? I feel like I just want to stop it there. So that just becomes another piece that carries through not every single page. I mean, I didn't make it go through every page. There's some that it skips, but then when it picks up, it's sort of like, will somebody that's looking through it notice that it picks up? How much of it do they realize, like things flip and tie over from page to page? Is it something that's going to be super noticeable, or are people just going to kind of get that feeling that there's a flow to it? And I find that really fascinating. You know, even though colors can be totally different, you know, because of that brain wraps around, there's that continuity. Because of that line, because of some pen lines and pencil lines, it really ties together. So this is a spread where I feel like I want more, and I think that's why I stopped here. It's like there's something lacking here. It's probably words, because really almost every page has words up until here. I mean, this has words. It has some of that writing that I did on tracing paper, but yeah, this is kind of where I start to feel like things are getting sparse and that there's a lot more to do. But I think I'm going to kind of call it the day with that, just because I feel like, okay, I'm not sure where else I want to go with this. So instead of trying to force something, I think that's a good sort of good stopping point. I often ask my students in classes and workshops, like, you know, find a good stopping point where you feel like it's not done, it's not resolved, but that's a good place to end for the day or for the moment. And so I think that's a good spot to kind of end for today. And then my plan is to be back here next week and do more of that, do more of this. So um, Yeah, it's just kind of, I think what it is just trying to get back into the habit, get back into the flow of things. Um, Trying to get back into that mindset, because like when I started it and I was doing it every week, there was very much a flow to it. And now after 2 months of not doing that, I mean, my energy has really been focused on teaching these camps and teaching these workshops and teaching classes over the summer. And I feel like the idea of emergence has been sort of in the back of my head, um, and I've been thinking about it and sort of just letting it percolate over the last couple of months. But sitting down and actually like kind of bringing it out and doing something with it, definitely is a not really a struggle, but just sort of like just getting back into it and getting back into that flow. So anyway. Just let me know if you have any thoughts or any comments or any questions. You can pop those down into the comments, and I'll try to respond. But if you, but yeah, if you've, sorry, I'm just getting myself a little distracted. Yeah, so if you got any thoughts, comments, or anything, just pop them in. I'll try to respond to them, and just really appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, whether it's live or watching the recording or watching on YouTube, definitely appreciate it. So just let me know if you have any questions, and or if you want to see something in particular, and I will be back same time next week to do another one. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, happy creating.